to power, Dukat decides to spend some time trying to get into Kira's pants. Unfortunately for him, the Targ on the Klingon ship probably has a better chance with Kira than him. In case the Targ tries anything, though, Kira needs to teach Ziyal. Klingons can be unpredictable sometimes in a battle. So she introduces Ziyal to the Cardassian Rodimus Prime rifle, and then to the Lego Phaser rifle. She tries to sing the praises of the latter, but it's overcomplicated, and it doesn't inspire much confidence when the power pack drops out while she tries to show its stability.
So it's not as good a field weapon. Too many things can go wrong with it.
Again, like the power pack falling out in the middle of a firefight. Ziyal turns the subject to her father, and Kira is polite but unhesitant in her opinion that he's a bad person. This arc hasn't been about Kira, but there's one point that keeps coming up. She's polite enough over any discussion of the occupation, right up until it in any way attempts to mitigate Cardassian actions. Then her voice becomes unmistakably icy. And there's no mistaking why. The rape of the land and the people, the mass murder, they're not the kind of things you can live through and ever really detach yourself from. And to be fair to Kira, she hasn't been the one bringing up the occupation, it's everyone else. Hearing that Dukat has reconsidered the occupation and decided that it was a mistake changes nothing. And trying to turn this into some character-building exercise reveals how paltry such an idea can seem.
But maybe losing made him a better person. And a lot of innocent people died for his education.
Sometimes this period is talked about as softening the character of Dukat, or that this was his anti-hero phase. But I personally like to think of it as more that Dukat is a well-rounded character who, at the moment, just happens to have more of an alignment with our heroes than he did at other times. But he's still basically the same person. He may have altered some of his opinions, but core elements of ambition and pride are still here and will continue to be, as we'll soon see. Kira and Dukat work out a likely target the Klingons would pick, and thus form a plan of attack. Make them think that they have cargo worth stealing, and when the Klingons are unprepared, blast them with their super-duper cannon. But as Dukat tries to compliment Kira in a flirtatious way, she's completely sour to him. And he probably knows why. But Dukat's pride is too great to admit that he personally did wrong. So whenever it shifts from professional issues to personal ones, Kira's going to be put off by a man who slaughtered untold numbers of people and tells her it was ultimately for their own good. You'd have a better chance of getting a blowjob from Mother Teresa than getting Kira to accept such a compliment. The Klingons find them, and thanks to Technobabble, thinks there's some dilithium crystals on board, and demands to have them. The plan's off to a great start, and a few shots weaken the Klingons severely, but only one volley smacks the crap out of the freighter. Kira and Dukat decide they'll beam over, beat up some Klingons, and then use the transporters to swap the crews on the two vessels. Wow, that sounds like a really handy maneuver. Be sure to put that in the box of stuff that saved our asses and then file it away so we never do it again. So that means the Klingons are now at Dukat's mercy. Unfortunately, as the Bajorans know, he has very little, so he destroys them with their own weapons. Justice for the dead Cardassians, eliminating a potential threat, retribution for the earlier insult, or just because he can. We don't know. But he's certainly not in the least bothered by it. In fact, he struts about cheerfully on the bridge of his new toy. And when Kira reveals that they have the priority targets for all the Klingon raiders, he downright gloats at all the power this will now bring him. Funny that 5 years ago, Kira and any of her friends would have gladly put a phaser blast through his head. And now she's handed him the means to acquire even more power than he had before. However, things aren't quite at what he expected. The kinder, gentler civilian government of Cardassia won't even launch a massive counterattack to cripple the Klingon forces. No, they'll be looking for the diplomatic solution. Even though he's got his power back, Dukat's disgusted at this decision.
Well, you can change their minds. Convince your fellow Cardassians to go on the offensive.
Yeah, screw peace. What good did that ever do anyone? Dukat reveals what exceeds even his ambition, his pride. And his pride is tied with the pride of his people. And to see them unwilling to stand up for themselves sickens him, declaring loudly, in paraphrase of Sitting Bull, "I'm the only Cardassian left," meaning he is the only one willing to stand up for what made them great. You see, part of the reason he believed in the occupation was because he sincerely believed in the superiority of Cardassia, that Bajoran resistance was just a refusal to accept the fact that the Cardassians were in charge because they deserved to be in charge, a kind of manifest destiny. This refusal to stand up to the Klingons isn't just cowardice. It's a slap in the face to the very nature of what it is to be Cardassian in Dukat's mind. And he won't allow any such insult to go unanswered, even if it comes from Cardassia itself. So he makes a decision. If the only way to save the Cardassian people from themselves is to wage a one-ship war against the entire Klingon Empire, he'll do it. Kira points out that Dukat is crazy.
Baby Ruth.
Dukat then asks if she'll join him, and she even more forcefully points out that he's crazy. But he gives a speech about how this is good for Bajor, and more importantly, good for her. Dukat gives Kira time to think about it, but then Ziyal runs up excitedly because she's learned a new move to use during a knife fight. Oh, that's great. You got the phasers, you got your one move. You're perfectly set here. We're going to stick you in a green suit and you can go fight the Flood. This convinces Kira that whatever Dukat's plan is for the Klingons, Ziyal can't be a part of it, and tops his speech with her own.
You had your moment. But the fact of the matter is, I've already been where you're going. I've lived the life you're choosing. Fighting hit and run, always outgunned. Living on hate and adrenaline. Not much of a life.
She also offers to take Ziyal to DS9 so that she won't have to become a resistance fighter like Kira had. Dukat resists at first, but later he seems to realize that if Kira is effectively Ziyal's surrogate mother, then that means Big Daddy has a chance. Post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to Ziyal, but that's mostly just for that knife bit. It was embarrassing to watch. Final score for Return to Grace is 6 out of 10, slightly above average for DS9. The real strength of this episode is the Kira-Dukat dynamic. Two different people with very different attitudes trying to work together in this odd situation. I should again add that the look at Dukat, like the character, is an evolving process, and we're going to continue to see shades and actions as it continues. There's far more to still see and say related to it. When we pick it up next, it jackknifes into the Dominion arc, but that will be for next month. I'll be right back. Glad I'm not going to Cardassia.